Look at this. I got headphones on. I got a mic going. Baby.
If
Huh?
only people could see you now.
Hey, no video. We've gone through this before.
All right,
No
all right,
video.
all right. Welcome to This Commerce Life. This is a podcast aimed at small, medium entrepreneurs focused on commerce. I'm Phil, your host, and Kenny, your co-host, will join us as well. And we're going to talk to you about the world of retail and commerce and how things are changing in the world.
Yeah, you and I have crossed paths, but I don't. I feel like I know you better than I probably do.
Well, and it's probably this. It's likewise because I've heard enough about you to the point where Sterling's pissed that you got a 9 o'clock in the morning my time podcast. How come you got prime time? Big gun, buddy. Big gun.
Yeah, sorry, Sterling.
Yeah. Big gun.
Sterling.
You're a minor leaguer, buddy. What do you get? You get 9 o'clock. My time.
Sterling, we have a slot at midnight tonight if you want to jump on. And
Well, and his default is pissed, right? So it's like you just kind of come to it.
It just goes there, does it? Yeah, you're kind of right. It goes from happy to sour in milliseconds.
If that guy ever figured out his attitude, he'd be successful. But he's such a stick in the mud. Yeah. Love the guy. Love the guy.
Oh, it's awesome.
Man. Oh man. So we have Aaron Skelton on with us today. He is president and CEO of the Canadian Health Food Association. Very cool. We're pretty
looking forward to this
have
one.
You on. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Me too.
Yeah. We apologize. I don't if your press folks are a little nervous about this.
I said I think these guys just kind of roll with it, and we'll just figure it out as we go. And they went, "Okay, yeah, we can do that. Sure, if you're comfortable, we're comfortable."
It's killing them. They can't do it. They're killing them right now.
There'll be a lot of sleepless nights. Yeah.
I think I gotta tell. But Phil and I were saying that. I said, "What's he gonna say?"
Yeah.
If he doesn't like the question,
of.
He's not going to answer it. It's it. And we're not. I mean, you've listened to the podcast. We're not. We have some stuff I want to talk to you about because you run an interesting organization on a good day, with the amount of, oh my God, issues that have happened since COVID to the industry and what's it look like down the road. And I mean, there's so much we can talk about. So I mean, if they're panicked, whatever, tell them to buckle up and go for the ride.
I expressed that to them in more or less the same words. I mean, look, there is tons of stuff going on, not to be undercut by the fact I came in midstream. Right. So I get asked that a lot. But I think
that's one thing we want to start with too. So why don't we do this? Why don't you tell everybody who you are? Where you come from, how you got to this place. You can pick and whatever you want. You can talk about the family aspect as well, personal, or if you want to talk, we don't care. Do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Sure. So as you said, Aaron Skelton, president and CEO of the Canadian Health Food Association. I used to say recently, but as I've come to accept, 7-8 months into this, I think I have to drop that now. Was really excited to join back in September of 2020. I mean, I've spent 17 years now in this industry. Wow. And really stumbled upon it. I think like a lot of people came out of university, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, wanted to change the world. And then quickly found there's this thing called experience that people wanted on top of an education. So I actually stumbled into natural products and retail working for Loblaws. Thought I wanted to get into some more product development and more of the science side. I mean, my degree is in nutrition and nutraceutical sciences, but Loblaws needed a manager for their health food store. And I thought, until I find my quote unquote real job, I'll give this a shot. And truthfully, guys, fell in love with it. Just that experience you get in store, in shop, talking to consumers at shelf, hearing their feedback, hearing their problems, helping them navigate what can sometimes be an overly complicated shopping experience. I learned so much and gained such a passion for the industry, and had with a company like Loblaws, there's a lot of opportunities that come along. So was able to bounce around into operations and store development, merchandising, procurement. Just a great place to learn, right? And all the other challenges with a large organization, there's a lot of pluses, and just the resources that at your fingertips was one of them. Had a bit of an opportunity at the tail end of my career with Loblaws to take on store development, which is cool because it was just like soup to nuts. Here, Galen kind of said to myself and one other gentleman, "Here's the idea. You guys go make it happen." And that's where I got an entrepreneurial bug, right? I just said, this is, I mean, one, being an entrepreneur with someone else's bank book is a lot more
nice.
fun than doing it on your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
So I got
little easier.
a little bit of the flavor for it then, but decided to flip to the other side of the desk and did a startup with a friend of mine. Sort of got into developing our own products and own brands, and then went through a ton of M&A work. Took that company public, so just saw the full spectrum of the industry. But at some point, I've got two small kids at home, a third on the way. Building a business is a ton of work, and you kind of put the blinders on, right? And you just forget the effort that goes into it.
Yeah.
And so I took a bit of a breather and did some consulting work. And when CHFA, I'd known Helen for a long time, who was a 10-year veteran of the role. And she said she was moving on, and it's, chatted with the board. And truthfully, I said, look, I don't know that coming on to run an events organization is really what I want to do. And the board said, well, that's perfect, because that's not what we want to be. And so even in the middle of COVID and all the challenges that came to the organization with that, I mean, I'm kind of fond of saying I don't do things because they're easy. I do them because they're hard. And this one just felt like a hard one that I could really, sink my teeth into. It was the right organization at a right inflection of change. And the support to really get that change pushed across the line. So it's been an exhilarating few months, but I'm so glad that I said yes to the opportunity.
Good for you, man. That's good. That's good.
Wow.
Maybe for listeners is, so what is a CHFA, the Canadian Health Food Association? Like what is it? What does it stand for? What does it represent? What does it do?
Yeah. So the CHFA was developed or formed, 50 plus years ago. Really a long history of more the sort of grassroots independents, supplement NHP sort of retailers and suppliers, really binding together to make sure that their voice was heard in the industry. They could elevate the issues that they had. It's evolved immensely over the years. I mean, most people know us for holding, two of the best world-class trade events, sort of bookending the year. As I said, the value that we delivered as an association was really cornerstoned by 8 days of the year. And on top of that, did tremendous work from a government relations and a regulatory standpoint. So, why the products are on the shelves the way they are today, with the level of efficacy and safety and compliance that they are on the shelf today, has a lot to do with the work that the association's done over the years. Moving forward, we've got to evolve that a little bit, but that's how most people know us, is really sort of the quote unquote voice of the industry, pushing forward some of the issues, but also creating a space for the community to come together. And I think that's where, CHFA East and CHFA West really stood out in people's minds.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that's what most people do consider it. It's I mean, outside of an advocacy, which most people don't see because they're in their own worlds. It's really, it was two big, cool trade shows in Vancouver and Toronto, which, as you know, when you came into this, that's wonderful. But even without COVID, that was going to start to get long in the tooth, where it's great and it's lovely, but you better have a little bit more to offer than just sort of two trade shows a year, right? That 8 days is not enough to.
No, and I think there's work being done now by our team to try to distill down what the reason for being is, right? We're a brand upon ourselves, and if we didn't really have that reason to believe in what we did and how we were distinct from where those other things could happen, I think that was always, to your point, Kenny, there was always that risk, right? That just creating the space for the magic to happen wasn't enough. We want to participate in the magic a little bit more and facilitate it. And so it's probably a long time coming, and COVID really just shone a light on it. Maybe that didn't have the focus it had before. But I think it was always in the works. People knew that, the industry had evolved, and therefore the association sort of needed to evolve along with it.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And you guys do, I guess there's a lot involved in what you do. I mean, I'm looking at some of the webinars that you do as well, to be able to educate even the brands within the association, right? Around packaging and things like that.
Well, yeah, and Phil, I think that's one of the spaces we're trying to move into, right? Is the events were great, and I think a lot of good business happened in those events. But there's 365 days in a year, not just 8, and so we're really focused on what are the other touch points that we can act less of owning the material. And I think this is sort of a core belief of us moving forward is we don't have to own everything that we work with. We want to be able to connect people and really be the conduit out to these things within the industry. And we sort of have this, we don't know how to track it as a KPI quite yet. I love a good dashboard and a good KPI, but organizations that interact with the CHFA have a faster acceleration in whatever their business objectives are than those that don't. And that can be, Phil, to your point about, a corrugate supplier, a label supplier. That could be, how do you navigate, going from small and medium retailers into large retailers? How to pick a distributor. What does that look like? And what are the pros and cons to some of the abilities that they've got? Whether it's insights and research, how to collect your data, never mind how to use that data to make good decisions. We firmly believe that the role of the CHFA can be to facilitate those interactions. And we've kind of got this hub and spoke model of how do we, connect the dots for a lot of the players in the industry. We're kind of unique, right? We don't represent a function within the industry like some of the other major associations do. They're the manufacturers, they're the retailers. We do really stand up for the entire industry and all the players that come into it. And that gives us, a unique advantage, I think, in how we service our members.
It does give you an interesting perspective. So, I mean, and some listeners may not know. So you joined the CHFA, correct?
Yes,
so
correct.
As whether I'm a retailer and or a supplier, I pay an annual fee.
Correct.
To be a member. And then I would pay fees if I wanted to participate in either, today's world, virtual shows and or if we ever go back to physical shows. So I get that. I think you can tell us what you can tell us, right? Because you don't have to do trade secrets, et cetera. But I am kind of interested to understand more the sort of consultative type of role that you potentially could play. So as a small manufacturer, I pay my X $1,000 a year, whatever the number is, to come in. Like, what do I get for that? What more can I get from you outside of just being able to put a logo that I'm a member of? Like, the navigation of this industry and the challenges we're going to face, I'd like you to get into that in a moment too, is going to be interesting. Like, what do you offer me? What can you do for me or help me?
Yeah, no, and I think that's a pretty good high level description. We're no different than any other sort of trade association, whatever industry you represent. That membership is a bit of a baseline. It does open the door to the community, as we kind of like to describe it, and I think there's a lot of upside from that. I mean, you guys know within your spaces and your networks that, most of the good work and the good opportunities come from being able to connect with others that have had the experience, would be willing to support the experience. And I think the health food industry specifically is just filled with that intention, right? Everyone wants to sort of help the other people, no matter the success you've had or success you're searching for. Everyone is so willing to help. And what we try to do is create that community, that space for that help to happen. So whether it's through, networking events that you get access to, mentorship panels and insights that you can utilize. Yes, there's the virtual and the trade events. There's, access to the webinars. There's reduced rates on services that you can get access to. We partner with a great group, actually to the West Coast, called 3AG, that does data analytics. So you might have the information. That's kind of half the battle. It's what do you do with that information? How do you read it? How do you tease some things out of it? And so you get access to assets and services like that. I think moving forward, our vision is to create these separate platforms where it's almost like a clubhouse. It is a true membership where you kind of come into the family, and those within the family like to help the other ones in the family. And so these learning sessions and mentorship sessions are a big part of it. I think you guys know as well as I do a few people that have seen great success in this industry, and humbly I'd say they probably stepped away from the association a little bit over the years. They felt their time had been served, the purpose that it had for them. But when I reconnected with them since I joined, unanimously, and I don't say that lightly, they've all said, I want to give back. I want to find some way to connect with that next cohort that's coming into the industry, and there's really no great place to do it. And so I think the association can really play that role, right? So yeah, you get all the normal bells and whistles with an association, but you also get the community learnings and the community support and help, which from my experience being in retail as long as I've had is the cornerstone to success, right? Is knowing how not to make the same mistakes other people have made. and how to get the right introduction and be in the right place at the right time. And aside from, the tangible things that I think the CHFA does, moreover, we're just facilitating that default nature within the health food industry and creating a place for that support to happen.
No, it's a smart play. I mean, it's, I know Phil knows this too. I think it's hard for people if you come from, like Phil and I come from all over CPG, right? I've done a lot of stuff in the natural health space. Even when I was with London, we were pushing the natural side hard. But even as I've left, it's a funny, it's a unique set of people.
Yes.
It's a quasi strange, eccentric group of people that I think but to your point, they're strange in that they actually do want to help each other. Which I know sounds funny, but it sounds like because people in business typically don't want to, I mean, I've never been to so many events where retailers are hanging with retailers, the buyers with buyers, and all together. And, you're getting competitors with competitors, and nobody's really adverse to it. It's really trying to say, okay, how do we grow this industry a little bit differently? And I think that's one of the things where CHFA probably hasn't done the greatest job over the years, because to what you started at the beginning, the focus was really on 2 trade shows here. That really was a large part of what you did. And I think this is why we wanted to have you on, is because even though you and I don't know each other, I do know who you are, and I know some of your history, and I know what you're capable of doing. And I think this is going to be really critical for this body, as well as an industry that is in flux. Got hit hard with COVID. A lot of mom and pops.
Yeah, and I think the fundamentals have strengthened. The challenges are overt, but the fundamentals about why this industry was started and why people are so passionate, as you described them, have only strengthened, right? People are more caring, more thoughtful about their own health over the last 18 months than they probably ever have been before.
Exactly.
They're more in tune with their community and what that means and how to support others than they've had before. And coming from where I came from at Levels when I first started, and health food was really the niche. It was a super exciting niche. It was doing well. It was probably like your time at London, right? Like everyone was curious about it. But we're on this trajectory now where the fringe products will be the conventional products.
Yeah.
Right. Where health food will now become the norm. And there's a sophistication, a maturity, a growing up that the industry really has to embark on to be able to take advantage of that. And it's not about defending the way we've always done things, but more embracing the things that are going to help us. What I believe is adhere to our shared goal and mission of helping Canadians live a healthier life naturally. Like that's what we're all trying to do in different facets and different areas of retail. But that's the common goal. And eventually that's going to require a scale and a knowledge and a sophistication that some members may not have, some people in the industry might not have. And I take our role very seriously on how do we support them to be able to put them in a position where they can succeed. So I know when I first started, I kind of described it as moving from a defensive to an offensive position. We're not trying to defend our old way of being. We're trying to prepare ourselves so that we can be offensive to take advantage of the opportunities that are coming. It's a bit, it sounds like semantics, but it's a pretty significant mind shift for how the organization actually sees its role within the industry.
Yeah, I do think that's incredibly important, right? Like anytime that you move from niche to mainstream, right? There's this danger, right? That you lose it, and you get, if you don't change with that kind of mainstream thinking, you kind of get pushed aside, right? In a lot of ways. But what you do is so critical. And I think it's a great place for you to be able to jump into this, right? Because you are going to get, as mainstream consumers start to really think about this category and want to be able to do stuff, you're going to see people jump in here and start creating things. Lord knows we've had enough of them on this show, right? Like, people who have made things in kitchens and then not known what they were doing whatsoever, right? And they've kind of sort of made it, but I think having you
there will guide these guys to being able to do things better, quicker, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons I've stayed in the industry my entire career is because of that passion, right? And Kenny, you were kind of describing it before, like people genuinely want to help, right? It's as close to altruistic
Totally.
as I think you can get, right?
It's the only industry I can think of that's really and truly that's made for money, that really is have that altruistic play.
Yeah, and just ask anyone that was in traditional CPG that dipped their toe in, and they're still here, right?
Yeah.
They're still in this industry because they went, holy bleep, like I didn't know that this actually could exist. Like I can drive my business for a good cause and feel good about it at night.
Yeah.
Oh, so sign me up, right? Like I think that's great. And Phil, your comment about all these, passionate people that start businesses in their kitchens and their garages. Just because you had the passion, you may not know the blueprint on how to make a bigger impact. Yeah. And being able to provide that blueprint to some small degree so that person can take a great idea and turn it into a great business. I don't know, that gets me excited in the morning, right? I always just say to my old team at Loblaw, it's like we get to change in a healthier direction more people's lives in Canada than anybody else. We're the largest health food retailer in the country.
Yeah.
Right? More 14 million at the time. 14 million people used to come in those doors looking for something that would make their life healthier. And we had a say, an impact on that. And that's going to get me excited in the morning every day. And that's one of the reasons with CHFA where I went, yeah, maybe it's what it was really good at, it still is good at, but it needs to evolve the way the industry has evolved. And the timing of it just seemed like, the right time to come in, and we were sort of ripe for change and for a different way of looking at things.
Let me ask you something then. So it's going to be, I don't know how to, because I don't want to put you on the spot. Well, actually I do, but that's not really the main intent.
I think you do know how, and you're about to, but I look forward to it.
Yeah. So what I'm trying to get, so the way you're both talking is definitely true when you're on a supplier side. And because I've been on both sides, all sides as a supplier, and never mind with the sort of the work I do now with my stuff, whether it's the coffee and things like that we've used the CHFA for supplier side. Yes, what you're trying to do is get that natural health channel knowledge, and you're trying to get to the mainstream, and the mainstream means FDM, like food, drug, mass. That's mainstream, right? And this channel has always been massively protective because a natural channel was more not about them and more about the independents and sort of that community. I mean, you and I, bottom line, I'm older than you. I mean, there was times, and Phil and I've laughed, but I went to shows and buyers don't beg for listings. I was begging just for people to talk to me. Because we were viewed as the devil incarnate. I mean, we were not the ones to deal with. So my throw to you is that's great for a supplier side, but you have to manage a large membership of independents who in your province specifically, like my province is very different than yours. We haven't been closed, really, truly, we have not been closed. Even the restaurants, yes, we were closed to inside dining. We've been outside. You guys have been closed, right? So how do you balance between these lovely independents and the mom and pops and talking about the mainstream when unfortunately the mainstream typically defines a completely different channel, not theirs? Yeah.
So no, look, you know
what I'm asking, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think it's, I can share a personal story, which I think is similar to yours. I came in to merchandising world with one of the large players, and I can remember having conversations going, your product is better than any other product on the market. You have something proprietary, it's different, whatever it was. And you're refusing to sell to me where you get the most access to the most consumers.
Yeah.
And if fundamentally your goal is to help as many people as possible, I was just confused. Like I was just that naive novice coming into this world going like, what do you mean you don't want to have a conversation? Because I fundamentally thought that if you had a product that you thought helped consumers' lives, as many as possible, it was sort of built into that philosophy that you should try to get it to as many people as you could, right? Yeah. But what I quickly realized is it's under specific conditions. And so that was always my counter to that point. It's like the answer is no for what you think it will be. Well, tell me under what conditions you're going to be willing to say yes. and sort of really change the dynamic of because you know, are you going to go sell a Bentley at the corner car dealership? No, I get that.
No.
There's an experience. There's a right. So I was more fulsome about talking about what that looked like. In terms of the questions on sort of the smaller independent, I think our push, our conversation, the narrative we're trying to thread through this is it's, you know, the differentiation that was independent health food before was around assortment. It was around access to products that nobody else had. It was around, you can't get it at the big box, you can only get it here. And that's our point of difference. We've succeeded as an industry in making the masses want our products. That can't be seen as a negative. It's just a repercussion of being successful. You then constantly have to redefine what your point of difference is. And so, you know, there's still a little bit of assortment, and I think there's a little bit of speed to market and some opportunities that are there. But what are the other attributes to your business organization that can still stand you apart from those that fall into FDM? And that's the conversations I have with a lot of our members on that scale of small membership or small retailers. Is you got to carve out the other aspects of your business that keep you differentiated, that keep you, and it can't be putting up a wall around, well, we only carry things other people don't. I think that's limited. It works for a certain style of retail and a certain time and place. But for the majority of those in that space, they really have to define themselves as something else. I did, Kenny, like you, I did a little bit of consulting between retail and where I landed. And one of the really interesting insights I got from a couple of clients that I worked with was, you put an FDM location next to an independent health food retailer and you list something in both, the independent health food retailer will likely do better because of the presence of the FDM, right? And it appeared, you know, geography after geography. And it was, you know, consumers are going to those locations for different reasons. They're going for discovery. It's part of the experience. It's part of there's things that can't be duplicated on both sides of the equation.
Right.
And I think if you can tap into that and harness that and provide tools for the small and independents to use and provide them the intelligence and the insights that they may not have access to as an independent. So how can we sort of cross share some of these insights? That there's more than enough space for everybody, and that resisting the movement by consumers to embrace this industry it isn't going to work. It has to be, how do we push it faster and farther?
Right.
But yet, how do we provide the tools and the insights for our smaller bricks and mortar guys to be able to survive and really carve out what their new place is for whatever the next 10, 20 years is going to be.
And these tools, so, and I get it, and as an organization, I think you should be able to do that. And I think, you know, as an organization that's in essence a nonprofit, you should be able to charge for that so you can break even, et cetera. So I get a base, you know, X thousands of dollars, I get base. And then, you know, maybe there are courses, maybe there's access to people like Phil and I, not saying that would be Phil and I, but pretend. Right?
Sign you up. Good. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could do that too, actually. That's a different conversation. And probably not on the podcast. But okay, potentially Phil and Ken could be open to that too. But it's that sort of access where you're trying to, you got to give, you got to get these people thinking differently, but you got to show them how to think differently without them freaking out.
Well, I think it's the why to think differently. Right, to sort of distill it back down to like, what does this matter to me? Like, I want to go back to my store. I want to operate the way I've operated, and I should be able to do that. But you can,
by the way, that's your choice. You can do that. Just understand the repercussions to doing that.
Yeah, and we're going to show a pathway where you can find more success in a different way, and through some of the ways we're hoping to do that now. We've got the partnership we announced at the beginning of the year with Mintel, so a market and consumer group out of the U.S., which they actually have 6 people in Canada, like boots on the ground, are providing not just translated U.S. data but Canadian data. Wow. How can you, as a small, medium-sized retailer in Canada, harness that to provide some incremental information? We're pursuing a conversation with another data group out of the US, more around POS, and how do we take that shared intelligence and go, look, I'm one guy in one environment, but there's, you know, another store in a similar environment. How do we take some shared learnings across that? You know, the work that Davide and the Health First Network guys, they're trying to do, which I think is brilliant.
Which I think is really smart, to be honest with you. I think it's a good play.
There's a group learn there, right? And we're not, we don't need to be solely independent, and we don't need to be competitive with everybody. But I think finding out what works and what consumers react to is a good place to start. And so hopefully we can provide some of that just through membership, and then I think pointing people in the right direction, right? Whether it be through consultants you can work with, or services that they provide, or package deals on certain training aspects for your, we're looking at rolling out a retail training program and a supplier training program, like how to be a retailer. What are the best practices? How do you manage your P&L?
That's
what
really
does pricing
smart.
look like, right?
Yeah. I mean, Phil and I've talked about ad nauseum about that, Aaron. I think that's a smart play.
Well, at the end of the day, this was not maybe well received when I first said it, but I think the board's come around. Is the focus isn't for us to be a successful association. The focus is for us to enable a successful industry.
Absolutely.
And the association is going to come along for the ride. Like, don't get me wrong.
You can actually lead the ride if you want, but you're going to be on the ride. It's not about you. It's about the industry. Let's get this moving, man.
Well, it's focused about our members' success.
Absolutely.
Right? Not about our own P&L, and we got to manage
whatever.
We've got, guidelines we've got to adhere to. But ultimately, if our membership is succeeding faster than non-members, then check. Like, exactly. I feel good about that, and we've done something
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
well.
Absolutely. It's definitely a different. It's definitely a different move, which is probably long overdue, by the way.
Well, I mean, everything has its place and its time, right? And I think the authoritative position of CHFA, and I chuckle about it now because our tagline was the voice of the natural products and organics industry. And we did a little bit of research from a marketing and a branding perspective. And, one of the things that comes back is like, well, that's what you're supposed to be. Like, it's not every association is the voice of their industry, right?
Yeah.
But it needed to be overt for the place and time that it was, right? And I think we're just at a different time and a different place, and our membership expects and requires something different of us. And I get a lot of joy and a lot of fun trying to figure out what that is on a daily basis.
No, it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's I love where you're going. I mean, Kenny and I've talked about this a lot too over the last years, just how tough the environment is, right? For a lot of those natural shops right now. I mean, the lack of ability to get online, the lack of resources to be able to compete and sell.
Lack of visibility sometimes, Phil, because what happens, you're on a small street and, in Barrie, and you don't necessarily know what's going on in the grander scheme, but I should be able to tap into my organization that I'm a part of and say, listen, what's going on out there? Like, help me. Like, I don't know, because I'm in a very myopic world. I only see what I see. Like, give me some insights, help me, let me tap into people. I mean, Phil and I talked about this too, is at one time we actually talked about doing a sort of a retail program where you sort of teach that basic merchandising, basic pricing, basic good retail practices, basic not worried that superstore's next door to you. How do you leverage that? Right? Because I agree with you. Having a Walmart in the parking lot is traffic.
Yes.
How it goes into your store is your responsibility, because they'll all go to Walmart. But shit, they're in your parking lot, man. Well,
and I would say, Kenny, off that one, the nice thing about a Walmart in your parking lot would be you know what to expect. You know how they're you know what that experience is like.
Absolutely.
You likely know they're not going to react to anything that you do. So if you want create an environment where you can test and learn and trial some things and figure out a way to stand out, that's perfect.
Shit,
it's
man,
absolutely
you got an audience
perfect.
at least you got people. You got someone in the parking lot.
Yeah. And I think on the education front, I mean, that was one of the early opportunities that we found. And a lot of it came just my recent experience in consulting, where people are asking some basic, good, solid,
they're solid questions,
but basic questions.
Right.
And the complete lack of where to go to get answers to those questions was a bit of an aha moment, right? I mean, and not knocking anybody who's doing the consulting gig, like there's plenty of business to go around. But I think our association does have an opportunity to play a role of how do you facilitate ideation?
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
In the different moments in time, and we're just going to skim the surface, but get enough out there so that people do a better job, and then connect them with the people that can take them to the next level. Right. So we're not going to have all the answers, but hey, if you want to do the Phil and Kenny retail program, if you like this, you'll love that.
You've got access to a pool of there's a lot of fish in this pool. Like, you will catch fish, as opposed to what they're doing now. Like you said, they're asking so many basic questions, and then a lot of times they'll ask, but they don't get an answer. So they just leave it, and you're thinking, no, you needed to stay on that for a minute. You're missing it.
Yeah, I do calls with members because they'll fire in questions to the team and go like they're just wondering about how to navigate getting a distributor. What does this look like?
Right.
And honestly, I'll get probably once or twice a week on a phone call, and it's like an hour, and I just talk, and they're just like, "This is amazing. I wish there was some place I could go to get all this information." I'm like, "We're working on it." Like
Yeah.
that's one of the
Exactly.
goals.
But that's what you should be, though, right?
Yeah.
That's who you want them to call, because they call you. You are the resource, because you're also, it's a livelihood for you too. You need some purpose, and you need to give something back as well. But this is for the betterment of all of us. It's a betterment for Canadians. It's a good channel. This is where the cool shit happens. It doesn't happen in Loblaws and London Drugs, my friend. They're not the innovators.
No, I mean, we've kind of got this internal mantra that if you want to launch a product into health and wellness in Canada, we want you to come here first.
Yeah.
And we might point you someplace else. We might
Doesn't
connect
matter.
you some other people.
Yeah.
But if you just want to launch a product in Canada, call it CHFA.
You should be the first resource.
We'll put you on the right path, and we'll make sure that you get in touch with the people that you need to. But I think Phil, it might have been you that mentioned it, but about going online. What does that look like?
Yeah.
If you don't have an omni-channel strategy right now, you don't have a strategy,
Oh,
right?
Yeah, you're really basically into slow death.
yeah.
Well, it is, and
it's not that slow now.
No, not that slow either.
It's not that slow. You live in Ontario, that it's not slow at all. It's going really quick. Yeah.
Oh, the numbers that are coming through from retailers, small and large, right? On the scale of which this is picking up, and the tools and how to position this and what his pricing strategies look like on this. I mean, we did a really small partnership with Shopify, right? Just to get some basic introductory know-how out into membership. So everyone was asking me, what do you do for e-com? I'm like, wrong question. There is no one strategy. Yeah. It's now sort of built in. And even if you work with most medium-sized, but definitely all the large retailers, there's an e-com platform built into that relationship that you have to be cognizant of and you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And so, omni-channel as a talking point is always it feels like it's a common place now to go, well, what is your strategy? If you have none, we'll start there, right?
Yeah.
Because that has come. The day is here. And I think people need to start thinking about it a little harder in our space than they have in the past.
We joked about this in the beginning, but we were mostly serious, right? Like I think when the pandemic first started, we did get some of those questions, and Kenny and I said, listen, now is not the time, right? Like you've got to get out there. So you don't have time to like build a full technology stack and all those things that come with it. So if your consumer can find you and they can call you, you have an omni-channel strategy. All you got to do is text me the order. I'll text you back when to come get it. You just got to be able to pull up at the curb. I'll put a little pile on there.
Pickup is omni-channel, man. You're in the game.
Yep. But if you don't have a plan for that, you've
got a problem.
It's
and I'm curious what you guys think about this. I don't think you need a good plan. Right.
No.
A plan would have helped.
But put things on paper.
Yeah.
Right. Just get the conversation started and acknowledge that this is shit. We got to address this.
Yeah.
But at least we're doing something.
Yeah.
And people that were waiting for perfection, right? You don't want that to get in the way of good. And I think that especially now with the speed of change, you just got to enter the market.
Yeah.
You just got to be relevant to some degree. And there's a lot of stories in the independent retail space of people that have figured that out. And like, I don't know how to do curbside pickup, but call me. And people are putting bag stuffers, they're doing advertising, they get samples out to people.
Absolutely.
Because the light bulb went off and go, I can't do it in store anymore. Well, where can I extend that experience back to my customers?
Exactly.
And a lot of cool stuff's happened because of it.
And a lot of cool stuff will continue to happen. And I think that's sometimes what I worry about in the industry that we're in, because I do a lot of work with independent grocery too, right? Is that the fear. You got to get past the fear of where it's going and just figure out, okay, listen, what do I need to do? Like, how do I manage this mess? Don't worry about what the whole world's doing around you. You got to be cognizant of it. I get that. But you can't just open it's not like the old days where you open your door and people came in.
Yeah.
And they still do to some degree, but you got to do a little bit more work now. You got to, figure out how to do this.
Well, and I think the advantage of trying to do it now than it probably was, 25 years ago is it's not hard to see what other people are doing, right? It's
milliseconds.
It's fairly easy with a laptop and a Wi-Fi connection. To say, well, what's working?
Yeah.
Who seems to be having success? And flattery, you're ripping something off is not negative, right? If that appears to be working, then try it. we do a lot of MVP discussions internally now, right? It's like, what's the minimum viable product? How do we test this and get it out there?
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that mentality of ideation and fail fast is perfectly fine. And I think a lot of retailers who kind of wait back and are looking for, best in class, go try something, because you might be the person that discovers the next cool thing that nobody else has.
Well, exactly, right? Exactly. And the things to remain static or stagnant isn't going to help you anyway.
It's a funny thing though, right? Because maybe it's just the words or because retail in essence is all about experimentation. Like nobody woke up and went, I'm the best retailer in the world. They all went, what might look nice as a display there, or like we all tried stuff until you went, hey, this works. I know this works, so we're gonna leave that there.
That shelf is empty. That's probably a good indication.
Putting something on there might be better than nothing. Basic things.
Well, so it's funny, not funny, haha, but it is funny that we've lost our lost our sense of experimentation.
But don't you guys think that given, and there's a little bit of repetition here, and we have one of our keynotes at a past event who came in and talked about the repetition of what we're going through and sort of the challenges on society, the strain from an economic standpoint. But what comes out of this is pure innovation, right? We're almost as a society primed for some really cool shit to happen.
Absolutely.
And I think, the messaging I keep trying to give members is, now's the time to go have fun, right? Now's the time to sort of dig into that. Okay, what have we been waiting for? We put some plans in place. We've all been buckled down for the last, 15, 18 months. The world is right. Your consumers are ready to listen to you, to hear you, to understand what you're here for. Don't waste a good crisis, right? Take advantage of this moment, because it comes around, every 100 years. And honestly, this one.
Then I think that's funny, because we all talk that way as retailers, and it pisses off people not in retail, because you make it sound like the pandemic. The pandemic is what it is. I mean, we're going to get more of these in time. But to your point, the last one was 100 years ago. This is like a gift in some ways. I'm not saying that. There's been a lot of stuff on this side. Obviously, we know that. But really, what comes out of this typically is what you're saying is this is where the innovation comes in. This is where cool shit can happen. All those ideas that you thought were stupid, prior to March 12th last year, all of a sudden come into play. You can do some different things. Who thought about curbside pickup? Really and truly. I know Opus was starting, but who cared?
Yeah. We talked about it, but
who was going to pay
really
Loblaws X amount of dollars a year to have the privilege to go to a side door, have someone bring groceries? Where would you guys living in? We don't do that. All of a sudden, like it's the next. You're paying membership fee to play with Loblaws. I mean, seriously?
Yeah, no, it's if you could rewind the tape and ask us some of these questions, 15 months ago, like, all right, Kenny, whatever you're on, share, but whatever, like, this doesn't make a lot of sense.
Not a lot of sense, right?
And sure enough, fast forward, I mean, consumer behaviors have changed. I think the openness to things has changed, and the consistency of which we've had to do some things has ingrained certain practices that aren't going to go away, right? Look, I love what the team's been able to push forward with our virtual events. I'm proud of it. I think there's a lot of good stuff that has been created online, but virtual is different, and it's harder than in person to accomplish some of the same business objectives. But what has worked really well? Connecting and providing content, insights, keynote speakers, our conference material, the depth of that, because we've had to focus on that, is phenomenal now. And I think willingness to engage and to consume information that way, maybe TED Talks had figured it out before, but in our space, people now can see the opportunity to learn about the industry, to gain some knowledge for their business on a virtual platform. And I don't know that we ever would have done that before.
You probably wouldn't have, again, because you didn't have to. Right? You'd go to the show, you do your thing. And people who didn't take advantage of the seminars, whether it's here or Expo, even in the States, you missed out, right? Right. And the people who used to go, there was all the natural guys, all the mask guys, we never did. Right? Who give a shit, right? We're just going there to buy stuff, right? Whatever. Right. But then you start, as you grow, you go into thinking, man, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. There's a lot of cool learnings. If you can be that repository for that, your mom and pops could but again, it doesn't just have to be specific to the industry. Basic retail, basic just basic shit. Get back to basics. Like, it's not rocket science, it's retail.
But don't you think this environment has forced us to distill that back down to the core purpose? Like, I think that's been one of the advantages of the things we've gone through is like, I said it off the top, like, what is our reason for being? What purpose do we serve? And to which sort of segmentation within this industry? And having those really hard conversations with ourselves to go, hey, we had a whole bunch of assumptions and they had lived on for 15, 20 years on the back of some really big success within our space. But are we still facilitating that core purpose back to that segmentation? And we've uncovered some things where we went, wow, yes, doing it better than we thought. We've uncovered some others to go, that's not the best way to achieve that, right? If product discovery is one of the number one priorities on going to events, are we facilitating that? Is keeping people in this mouse caged format of booths and exhibits, is that the best way to facilitate that? And we're not sure if that's any longer the answer. But if this moment hadn't happened, I don't think we would
have done the same thing. You know why? That's what we did. Did it work? Yeah, it seemed to work. So why change it? You don't. This has forced us to really look at things. To your point, even in the old trade shows, where people were, why people were in the same spot every year, why does it flow the same way every year? What do you? You're basically. I know you do too. You guys have both been to shows. I can tell you where the booth's going to be. Yeah, I can tell you what's going to be down this row. So what excitement do I get of that? What do I, what does it bring to the table? But that's just the show aspect. The retail side's the same thing. Change it up, man. Muck it up.
Well, and I think, Kenny, you've seen both sides of the equation, right? Going as a retailer and a prominent one with some sway. What interested me, and this came up as a learning, and I don't mind sharing this one, is retailers love the virtual show because they could go through anonymously. They could,
badge turned around.
Investigate products that they wanted to on their own pace. And manufacturers, suppliers have had a really hard time. Because you can't stalk someone down the aisle. You can't corner them in your booth. And so it all came down to what's the definition of a meaningful conversation? And I actually threw the challenge to the team. I said, I don't know what was seen as a meaningful conversation in a booth, in an aisle for 10 minutes at a show because you cornered someone. Was that really meaningful? And it maybe was for the supplier and it wasn't for the buyer. And so how do we break down that misconception of what a meaningful conversation is and deliver it in a different way? Because if you want some FaceTime, you want a listing, you want the opportunity for a promotion you wouldn't have gotten before, okay, we can do that. But if you want to force someone into a conversation they weren't willing to have for 10 minutes, then maybe we've missed the opportunity, right, with our retailer segmentation. So it's shone that light on accepted past experiences that I don't know really serve the purpose everyone thought they were, and have made us rethink how do we deliver that in a different way.
Good for you, man. That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
We did talk about giving an option. So we've now forced people to acknowledge who they are on the virtual platform. So you can't go anonymous anymore on the virtual platform. But we thought about putting in like a package, a $10,000 package to go anonymous and see how many buyers actually sign up for it. See if we get any biters on that one.
Buyers are cheap, If you're paying for it, buyers will be all over. But
flip the badge around.
Right.
Well, how many years? Listen, how many years did it take the industry to figure out to put the name on both sides? Right, because we would flip the badge because and we would change lanyards. I didn't want the green that was said. I'd just go steal a red because I didn't want people bugging me, which is kind of counterintuitive and counter-purposeful. But I want to pick who I want to talk to. I'm the buyer. I don't want to talk to everybody.
One of my favorite stories is one year I snuck it through to CHFA, but my badge said I was the assistant to the traveling secretary. So I snuck in a good Seinfeld reference into that and walked around the show. So that was more entertaining to have my badge.
Because nobody want to talk to you. What are you going to do for me?
Yeah.
But that's where you can have to. But funny though. But that's where the cool conversations typically come from. Yep. Because even the other person's guards down. Okay, this like, well, what do you want to talk about? Well, how do you do?
Exactly.
That's cool.
That's amazing.
Well, I think you're going to be good for this, buddy. I think it needs to change. It's got you got to figure out a different purpose, and we've got to make sure that we protect this side because, again, if you leave it up to FDM, I'm sorry, it doesn't. We're not meant to be the innovators. We were meant to be, and this is why nobody wanted to talk to us, because we were meant to go in and steal shit that was already working and just offering it now to the masses. The other side needed to be the ones who really got this going. And if they lose sight of that and become faulty or not as effective, it's not great for the Canadian consumer. Really and truly, it's not.
No. Well, I mean, look at, this could be a whole separate podcast, but if you look at the consolidation of grocery retail, it's scary, right?
It's not
really
good.
Scary.
Yeah.
And when you've got 85, 90% of the volume tonnage going through
Three
6
guys.
or 7 players,
3 guys,
maybe
between Metro Sobeys and Loblaws, you've chewed up most of the Canadian market.
Yeah.
Right. Then
And
you throw in
Save-On now in the West.
Costco and Walmart.
Costco, forget it, man. You're done. There's nobody.
So I mean, I think there's a role to be played, but it has to be embraced. And,
yes, it does.
I mean, I've gone on my little soapbox rants going, if you're trying to go toe to toe on price,
You're going to lose.
No, you're right.
Their pockets are so deep.
You can't.
So there's a value equation to me, which is value equals price times experience.
Exactly.
So you don't battle the price, battle the experience, because that's going to be where you can differentiate yourself.
Phil and I were on a call before we came on with you, and it was sort of went down those paths where you're trying to, you have something to sell. The reason people came to you in your stores because you were there, because you showed me shit, you talked me through things. Now, again, yes, if your traffic's light, then look at an online play, look at something different. Build a web page so they can at least find you, and have a couple videos so they can see you. There's a million ways to skin the cat, but you got to go back to why people did it. People wanted to learn something. They wanted something out of you. Even the organization, you need to do that. I know you're doing that. That's the same mentality. Give me a reason.
Yeah. Well, and I look, hopefully it comes across. Like, I love this industry. I'm passionate about it. I believe there is so much good that can be done through seeing this part of the industry grow. But you've got more people more interested in the touch points that we have with them, whether it's their physical well-being, their mental well-being, if it's consumable products that they're using, if it's the environmental and sustainability position. There are more people now that care more about this than there ever have been before.
Right.
If you don't feel, as someone who's already in the industry, that that's an advantage, then we got to have the first conversation, right? Like this
we got to go right back to basics, man.
Yeah.
This is not a declining category. You're not trying to mitigate losses. You don't have 99%, household penetration. It's like, where do you go from here?
This is not a horse versus a car, guys. This is, we know who's going to win and lose that one.
No, this is just, it's such a cool time to be in this space. Now, look, fraught with challenges, without question. We've just gone over a few of them, but I just gravitate to the hard shit, right? Like, I think that this is a problem that's fun to solve, because the upside is such a positive impact, right? Such a positive impact.
Huge in terms of dollars, in terms of just the overall thing that why most people started here, which was to just give Canadians just a healthier play. Yep. Like that still holds. That holds more than ever, maybe.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, and there's different reasons that people are in it. And I've found, at least through my experience, that the ones, Kenny, that hold that value still are the ones that become more successful, right? Look at what's happened recently in the cannabis industry, right? There's a bunch of guys who were chasing dollars that got into it. Not because they were passionate about the industry, not because they believed and they had been ingrained in it over the years, is they saw dollar signs. And the companies that came in with that purpose haven't fared so well, right? Whereas the craft element of it, the transition from the illicit market to the rec channel, those are the guys who are still in it because they've done it for the reasons that they
look at the beer industry, buddy. It's been the same.
Exactly.
Look at wine.
Exactly.
Right. It's the ones who went back to the basics, which was what? You gave me a compelling reason to come from you. I didn't care about the price as much as I wanted to talk to Aaron, because when I left, I felt that Aaron actually helped me. And now again, if you can do that with your organization, then it's going to be the same net effect. Who's going to lose? Nobody. No. Right. No. It's just winners everywhere. We can do this.
Yeah. And you guys probably do this more than I do, but I think a lot of people have a hard time getting to that why, that purpose for their organization. They think they know it. They might have an idea, but they get caught up in, quote unquote, business sometimes, and reminding them of, why did you start this?
Exactly.
What got you out of bed in the morning on month 2 when you weren't sure if you're going to make a paycheck? Like, it's that purpose, that why, that got people started, that I think is the lifeblood to what this industry is today. And I think is what's going to keep it unique, right, Kenny, moving forward. So we don't
I agree.
dilute it into it's a whole bunch of CPG companies that see an opportunity. You can't shy away. Look, Nestle's going to buy up companies because they see an opportunity, right?
Well, they're not stupid.
But,
I mean, the writing's on the wall. It's a good industry to be in. Come on.
But then how do we generate and backfill, right?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
okay, what's the next thing? And what's the next innovative product? And how do you deliver that experience?
Yeah.
And there's countless examples of where that continues to work. So I don't think that's going to change at all.
I hope not. I don't see it changing either. I hope not too, but I don't see it either. Because again, innovation does not come from the big guys. It really doesn't. Scale comes from them.
The big guys know that though. The big guys want that, right? Like the big guys, they buy because they see viability in the ideas, right? So, you know.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the reason they buy them and then don't touch them.
Yeah,
that they learned though. That's a learned thing. See, I'm
Yeah.
older than you. That's a learned thing. I've seen a lot of fuck up some businesses really good. Like some of them remarkable jobs of burying phenomenal businesses because they thought they knew. But the hell out. It's a different industry. You got to treat it different. They've learned that.
And you want to learn that after doing an acquisition of a smaller health food company is go to the trade show, right?
Yeah.
And just see the interactions. We were working with a third-party marketing group. And said, well, how would you describe the trade shows as they used to be? And pretty unanimously, at some point in that conversation, as they interviewed people, everyone's like, well, it's a bunch of people they like to hug. Right? Like
that's what I was going to just say to you. You know what? We just went around hug people because it was a nice place.
Yeah.
I never saw people once a year, twice a year. Hey, how's it going? And it's lovely.
But you go to and no ill will on grocery innovation, but you go to that show, it's not that, right? It's business, right? And I think that is the special, unique aspect to what we do. And now, how do we translate that from 8 days a year to 365 days a year? Hey, that's our problem.
That's your.
But
job,
I think
man.
the more, and I said this at our town hall the other day. This is an industry where the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. Yeah. And I think through these challenging times, those have leaned in to supporting others, supporting the association, it comes back in spades.
Absolutely.
And that's what I'm excited as things, loosen and restrictions lessen and we get back to what we used to do in a more, normal way. I think things will take off, right? I really do. And I'm glad that, CHFA is going to be able to play the role that I hope we can in all that excitement.
Very cool,
awesome.
Buddy. Very cool.
Aaron, thank you for joining
us. Good to have
us.
you. They're going to do well.
Yeah, we're really glad that you.
And I'm glad you came on.
Hey, anytime, guys. I really enjoyed it, and keep up the great work. It's been great listening to you.
Thanks. No, thank you. Appreciate it. We'll have you back on probably in the fall. I'd like to see once we get back to open, or more open and normal, whatever. I don't know what the hell normal means anymore, but whatever we get back to, maybe in the fall, it'd be nice to have you back, see where things are going.
Find out how stores are feeling, find out how membership's feeling. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah. You got it. Count on it.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Thanks,
awesome.
Seriously.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Aaron.
Okay.
Take care, guys. Have a good day.
Take care. Okay, bud.
Bye.
Phil, you going to hang on?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay.
That was really cool.
You know what? It's exactly what they needed.
Yeah, a little bit different from our normal, our normal kind of folks that come on, but that was really cool.
But I like it. I think I think it's like anything. I think and Aaron's no dummy. The challenge that CHFA had going forward was going to be if really and truly all you were going to be is this a two-time trade show. I mean, what value are you giving me, right? I love the idea that that if they can be this repository and conduit of resources. I think they can. I think if you're in the natural health space, then you should feel pretty confident that at least someone's got your back.
Yeah.
And you've got a good chance of not only weathering the storm, is maybe being the more successful channel. But it's up to you. If you're just going to do what you did because that's what you did, and that's how you did it. Yeah. Like, you're not going to be around long enough, guys. I'm sorry, man. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
But you can definitely leverage the shit out of this. There's a lot of cool opportunities. So
and really they're looking to do some really cool things. So
they're trying.
It's really cool.
At least they're thinking of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's awesome.
No, it's really good.
Glad we had them.
Yeah, me too. That was good.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy boy. I've had a lot of you this morning.